Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience. We've had some technical difficulties on the Brain Tumor Foundation side of things here. We are going to get started. Thank you, and as we have people trickle in, then that's great. It looks like we've got some people to get rolling, but I want to be aware of everyone's time. I first wanted to take the opportunity to thank Josh and Mariette, who are going to be presenting today, for taking the time to present this webinar, which is entitled Reclaiming Your Life After a Brain Injury. And they're going to provide us an overview of the program at the Watson Center. So I know that they each have some introduction slides, and they'll speak about themselves a little bit in their presentation. So I will pass it over to you, Josh and Mariette, to begin. We'll just take a moment for it to transfer over to that. So just bear with us for a second.
Okay, I'm hoping you guys can hear us there. Yeah, welcome. Thank you for the invitation to this. We've been really excited about kind of collaborating with different types of groups, getting the word out kind of on the cognitive recovery process that we work within. So yeah, reclaiming your life to the fullest after a brain injury. This is kind of what we do day in and day out, and working with different people on with brain injury of a variety of means to kind of get them back to a point where they're cognitively stronger and able to kind of meet those goals and have some better quality of life. So we just want to give you an introduction to what we do at the Watson Center Society, and provide you with any more information that we can. So just a little bit of an agenda. So we're going to do some introductions between Mariette and myself. Mariette's going to talk about her diagnosis and the acute recovery process. We're going to look at some of the gap in the standard of care that we've been noticing over the last few years that we've been working. We're going to talk about our research, our past and our current. We're going to talk about what the Watson Center Society does, who we are. We're also going to overview Mariette's recovery process after. We're going to discuss growth versus fixed mindsets. And then we're going to leave some time for questions and answers. So how I got involved, I originally was an athlete at Graceland University in Iowa, with English and history, and kind of a clear idea at that time that I wanted to get into education. Went for my master's in Niagara University. I'm from Ontario, and our program is out in BC this time, but like a lot of people out here are from Ontario, and there's a mass migration out here. So I started teaching at Eton Aerosmith School for kids, working with kids from grade 2 to grade 12 on capacity building to improve their learning disabilities. I have interest in neuroeducation, brain development in general, psychology and how that works with learning, and brain injury recovery now as a part of it. My personal interests are spending time with my family. I like to run, different types of sports, education, and just continual learner. I'll throw you over to Mariette.
Hi everyone. As you will see, my background is quite different from the one of Josh that he just described. I have a master's in marketing from Sherbrooke University, Quebec. I was previously a senior marketing manager at the Lottery Corporation here, and I had 5 employees at my charge. And I have been a client at the Watson Center for over a year at the program. And I'm currently now volunteering for them. I'm a mother of a cute little 5-year-old little girl, and I'm a wife of a cute, big 41-year-old man. My personal interests are health and wellness, of course, after what I've been through, working out and working hard. So how my story began. Basically, I was just a normal girl living my normal life. I fell in love with a guy, I married him, and we were traveling all the time, everywhere, all over the world. And then we had a little baby girl named Leah. And like I said, I was working as a senior marketing manager in a big corporation here at Lottery, British Columbia Lottery Corporation. But like every story, no, in 2014, I felt, and I still feel like I had it all. I had the man, I had the baby, I had the cute little dog that's on the picture I forgot to mention, I'm sorry. And I was really living the dream. But like in every story, there's always a storm that arrives. So at the end of my maternity leave, my daughter was barely 1 year old. I started having really severe headaches. So I went to my GP and I was diagnosed with migraines and then I went to the hospital and I was diagnosed with dehydration. So I forced them to give me a CT scan. I just started working for 6 weeks at that point, but so I was still working, but I was just really struggling with the headaches. So I forced the hospital to give me a CT scan, and they diagnosed me in a really cold way in the hallway of the hospital. They said I had a brain tumor, and that I needed to be operated right away to remove the mass. So I had a craniotomy 2 days later, only for them to discover that it was not a brain tumor. It was actually aspergillus, which is a fungus inside the brain, which is extremely rare. So once I had the craniotomy, I woke up and I was completely paralyzed on the left side of my body. So they sent me to GF Strong, which is a Vancouver rehabilitation center here, because I needed to learn to walk again. I spent 6 months there. I went from a wheelchair to a walker to a cane, but my medical needs were still too high. They could not provide for me enough, so they sent me back to Vancouver General Hospital. At the hospital, I was hospitalized for 6 more months. I had 6 brain surgeries in total. I was on the neuro floor, and they also discovered that I had hydrocephalus. So they had to put a shunt into my brain because the liquid in my brain was not draining properly. So I had big pressure into my brain. That's why I had so much headaches. And in the pictures that you see on the screen, basically that's just a little bit of my journey at the 6 months in the hospital. You see my daughter on the top left corner there, laying with me on the bed. And I had some weekend passes sometimes, so I'd see her. And so the picture on the top right, it's me holding her at home because I was finally home for a weekend. And the picture at the bottom left, that's my husband and her doing FaceTime with me while I'm in the hospital. And the picture at the bottom right, that's just hundreds of scans that I had. So it was a very, very challenging time in my life because 6 months in the hospital is way, way, way too long. So after the 6 months at GF Strong and 6 months at the hospital, it was 1 year, and then I was home. But I felt very, very isolated and depressed, and my daughter was 2 at that time, so she was in a terrible 2, and I could not take care of her, basically. And I really felt like there was a huge gap because they were taking good care of me in the hospital and at the rehab center, but once I got home, nobody cared about me anymore. So I was really left on my own to try and figure out what am I going to do, what's next. And I could notice all my cognitive changes, that my head was not all there anymore. I could not function the way I used to. So we really saw the gap in the healthcare system at that point because no one was there to help me. And I had to figure it all out by myself with a little daughter that was only 1-something year old, 2 at that point. So it was very, very difficult time.
So it would have been a really similar time, like calendar-wise, of where we were starting to notice a big gap in care within the system. And so a disclaimer, like everyone is very well intentioned and everyone wants the best for everyone's recovery. So we wanted to kind of dig into, like, if everyone's got these best intentions and wants the best recovery, cognitive, physical, what was actually the issue? Why was there such a gap once people needed that cognitive side? So I've talked to a few people that have worked within or had a history within brain tumors. And it's very similar to things I've heard within traumatic brain injury as well, that physical services are great, but cognitive improvement services are limited. So to a certain point, there's a lot of physical services out there, but as soon as those cognitive issues are the only ones that are really present, and there's a stigma against cognitive issues with, it doesn't matter if there's an injury, we still live in that type of world. Or I was told I'd be fine and I should be grateful for what I have. And that can be a double-edged sword. For some people, that's what they need to hear, and they really need to appreciate that process, and they need to be grateful for what they have, and hearing that and really taking ownership for being grateful for that recovery process and what you have is awesome. And for other people, that can kind of step on their toes a bit as, like, yes, I am grateful for what I have, but I know that I can be better. And if you're not getting those answers, it can be tough. Or if I've been given the right cognitive treatment at the right time, I wonder what could have been. Regret can be a terrible thing, and wondering what you could have done or put yourself in a better situation to become more cognitively strong. And like I said, everyone's well-intentioned, and perhaps there's just not enough research to show what's possible in cognitive recovery, or just not enough money being filtered into cognitive recovery. But these days, like our organization, at least, we really want to start looking into that, and we have, and I'll get into a bit more of that. So at the Watson Center Society, we recognized that there was a gap in care through our research. So the tool that we use in our background within education is through the Aerosmith program, created by Barbara Aerosmith. And where my background is, as I said, I was working with kids with learning disabilities at Eden Aerosmith School as an instructor, and working with kids from second grade all the way up to grade 12, and the gambit of emotions that can change throughout different ages as you're dealing with a learning disability. But I remember one thing that Barbara really said to me. So I went back to Toronto for training, as all instructors need to do to be able to be certified to instruct our program. And the one thing she said to me on graduation day, I'll always remember, which was, I asked her, and looking at the tool that we're using, could this potentially help with brain injury? I had been through sports, I had concussions in high school. I remember the difficulty with it, and you hear horror stories about professional athletes or people coming from different areas with brain injury, and what can happen as a result of the injury. And I asked her, could this tool be used? And her response was simple and direct: maybe you could do that one day. So that kind of led us into some research at UBC, with UBC, that they were doing on some of our kids, and mutual interest within the physical science at UBC to do some research with brain injury within our program. And the program is really based off of neuroplasticity, and that's neurons that fire together, wire together. The more that you're doing a task, the stronger the connections are going to be within the task. And if a part of the brain isn't working or functioning as it should, you really need to get some more connections in the areas. One of the examples that I really like to use is the way that they kind of look at our senses, for example. Like if you go blind, they'll say, oh, all your other senses are now heightened. So you have a better sense of smell, your touch is better, you can hear everything a little bit better, but nothing's really ever going to replace your eyes. So yes, other brain regions can come in to help support and help make connections a little bit stronger or help you do tasks, but nothing's ever going to do, every region's made so that it can function and do a task specifically that it does well. So if you're able to start getting some connections within those areas again, you can have neuroplasticity in the areas of the brain that aren't functioning as well as they could. So as we got into some research meetings, as we were looking at working with brain injury, some of the concerns within the researchers were, these people have brain injuries. Do you think they'll show up? Isn't 4 hours a day too much? These people aren't used to traveling or being engaged in life for long periods of time. Aren't you concerned that they won't engage in the program? And really, to us, this was a challenge. Mark Watson, who really spearheaded this whole notion, and the program is named after him. He's our founder, as well as Howard Eaton. and myself and Barbara Aerosmith, we heard these type of questions and said, you know what, if people are struggling with this, let's see if this tool can help. And the funny thing is, our program actually has an origin in brain injury. Barbara created this tool from a need of wanting to help herself, but at the same time looking at studies with Dr. Laria, for example, in Europe, who did studies on people with brain injuries from World War. So what they were kind of looking at was, and what she saw was there was reports that these people could do a lot of these natural tasks, live normal lives before, and then after they weren't able to do other things. And for her, she knew that these are things that I have trouble with. So looking at the physical placement of the injuries of the individuals, she kind of started to map the brain out for functioning. And from this, helped herself by improving on her learning disabilities to be able to create a school and a program in Toronto in the 80s for kids with learning disabilities. From there, we fast forward all the way to 2015 when the Watson Center was founded, and we kept doing studies around that time as well. So our study started at UBC, the Center for Brain Health, with 13 people around 2 years after a TBI, ranged from 18 to 54 years old, so it's quite a big age gap. The participants had plateaued in their recovery. The study started at 3 months. It was only supposed to be 3 months. We saw a lot of success. It went to 6. We kept seeing success, and we went to 9. What we worked on was 4 cognitive activities per day, 45 minutes per activity for 4 days a week. And what we really focused on was executive functioning. If your executive functioning was working better, you would have more tools to be able to approach the day with energy, just being able to problem solve, take a lot of information in, live independently, have strong relationships, etc. And some of the pre-scans that we saw, we were looking at the myelin water scans. There was a lot of different sequences within the MRI portion, and the myelination of the brain it's kind of like a fatty tissue that goes around the nerves. You can kind of compare it to the plastic around a wire. It just keeps it insulated. It makes everything move a bit quicker and more efficiently. So if you're looking around the darker or the lighter areas within, this image is of the healthy control, so people that didn't have brain injury. So we had an 18-year-old, 36-year-old, and a 51-year-old female. And then if you look at the TBI participants, and this is pre-study, this wasn't anything after, what we were starting to notice was that there was less myelination in there, which kind of related back to the functioning issues that could be happening within the people. And we didn't really know at the time if the myelination wasn't as strong because of a brain injury, or if this person had less and they were more predisposed to having issues with cognition. So as a part of this, within the TBI participants, the traumatic brain injury participants, we were hoping to see if we could see any changes in this. And this still has a lot of questions to answer, and we're still really not quite there. We also did EEG testing. So it was funny how this started. EEG wasn't even going to be a big part of the study. It happened to be on the same floor, and it was essentially free because the people just had to sit down with the cap. We only had the research assistants that could help out and do the scan. So we wanted to see how this could work. And the thought at the start was, within the electrical movement within the frontal lobes, what you see is slower cognition, people moving slower, not being able to calculate as much information, needing to take naps. So there must be less connectivity in there. And what they were finding was that was the complete opposite. There was far more activity within the frontal lobes and way more connections. And what the brain is really trying to do is heal itself and get a lot better. But it didn't really know how. So what the image that you can see with these connection pieces here is closer to what you might see within an infant, where the brain is really trying to figure out the world and make all these connections and then try to, but what you see with kids as well is they're irritable once they get tired and hungry and they need to take a nap at the middle of the day. And if they don't have that, they don't function as well. And what we were seeing was similarities between TBI in the early stages and the connections between a child or an infant like brain, which wasn't really efficient. What you want is less, and you want stronger connections. And the way that I kind of compare this, if we're looking at a map of Vancouver, for example, we've got a lot of bridges, or if you're thinking Manhattan or something, there's a lot of bridges that can come in to get everyone into the city. Okay, so let's say that the big one comes that we've been predicting for a long time in Vancouver, and one of the bridges goes down. Now, when everything kind of builds back up and people are getting back to work, there's less bridges. All the information or all the people need to get to work still. But now you're at work and your boss is upset because you're late, and you're frustrated because it took an extra 45 minutes to get there. It's not functioning efficiently. What you really need is to build that connection back up. You need that bridge, whether it's the same bridge or whether it's a new bridge. You need to get that connection back up just to make everything run a bit more efficient. And that's kind of what we're looking for within the EEG. We're also doing neuropsych testing and our own Aerosmith internal testing. So the neuropsych testing was completed by the UBC Department of Psychology using the NIH toolbox, and the Aerosmith testing was completed by Aerosmith trained teachers in Vancouver. And some of the results we were seeing from the neuropsych was very important. So if we're looking at fluid versus crystallized intelligence, the crystallized is more defined as the ability to use learned knowledge and experience. That we weren't expecting to see too much. If we saw a lot of movement in that, it would have been groundbreaking. That's kind of the ride the bike part of the brain, the automatic thinking type of things. But we're looking at the fluid intelligence, which is the ability to solve problems, use logic in new situations, identify problems. From the early going and within the green here, we were seeing quite a bit less of that fluid intelligence within the neuropsych. Just after 3 months, we saw a pretty big spike versus where the healthy control started. So we are starting to move back to that level of functioning. So it was at that point at 3 months that we said, okay, let's keep going. So here's the baseline 3 and 6, where this is within our published research. And you could see improvements in this fluid intelligence. And really this spurred us on to saying, okay, we've got something here that we want to be able to help people in the long run. But science really means nothing unless participants started to feel better. It's great to have scientific knowledge as far as it can get, and being able to prove improvements and small improvements and big improvements. But if we're not seeing improvements within the participants and them telling us they're feeling better, to us, it's kind of doesn't make much sense. So what we were seeing from participants at a 6-month self-report, they were having their own support group meetings where I wasn't a part of them. There wasn't any type of staff a part. It was just the group together, and we had a support group leader within the group that was facilitating this. And this was all information that they were bringing to us, that they were experiencing clearer thinking. Some of the words they're saying is the fog was being lifted off and they were able to engage. Increased executive functioning and attention, increased memory and memory for details, more outgoing in social situations, increased understanding in real time, so there's quicker thinking. And this meant everything to us. This meant that we're actually helping these people. And the language was a lot different. So when they were first coming in, what they were telling us was, I don't even know if I can come every day. I've got to get all the way over to UBC. For those that know don't know Vancouver very well, it's on the farthest west point of the province before on the mainland. And they were just hopeful and like, thank you for giving me a chance. I hope I can help. And what it turned out to be after that 3, 6, 9 month point was, I'm feeling better. What are you going to do for me now? I've got gaps in my resume. I need to get back to work. And although some of those can sound like issues, to us that sounded like, you know, they're ready to engage in life. They're getting here every day. We had a 96% attendance rate, which was astounding for what we were looking for and where they were coming in. But now we needed to find out, how can we help these people long term? So we created the Watson Center Society for Brain Health. Our vision was improving quality of life to provide programs delivered by specialists for the purpose of helping people with brain injury to improve and reclaim their lives to the fullest. And our core values and behaviors are very important to us: safety, empathy, determination, collaboration, and growth. These are things that we hold very dear to ourselves. So some of those questions that were being asked at that time, like what are you going to do for me now? How can you help me? We wanted to kind of create a program that hit on a few different areas. So we added in mindfulness meditation. It's very important to be able to understand and predict when symptoms are coming, being able to take ourselves out of situations we can't be in, understanding how we tick, how our feelings are moving. And we really target that within mindfulness meditation. Holistic wellness, we do have counseling as a part of our program. People can kind of deal with some of those questions, those bigger questions, find answers for things, and not everything can be brought up within a mindfulness session. We really like to have, or we do have counseling to kind of help with some of those. We do have the brain cognitive exercises, so the Aerosmith program and the ABI wellness program we now use. And cardiovascular exercise, the cardio doesn't really, it's not really put in there for total physical health. That just happens to be a side factor. The reason why we're in the training center and we're doing cardio exercise with our participants is we want to get some BDNF going, the brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is like a fertilizer for the brain. And once that's kicking in the brain, it kind of helps with the cognition and helps with the improvements. So we'll prime the brain before we go into the cognitive exercises by using cardiovascular exercise. And this is all in an effort to improve executive functioning. So integrating diverse cognitive functionings, determining goal-directed and purposeful behavior. We oversee this execution with daily life functions. So executive functioning is at the top, a self-awareness and metacognition, working on your memory and your comprehension, and doing this in everyday problem solving, reasoning, self-monitoring, self-regulation, organizing, and planning. If you kind of look at the steps of driving a car, there's a lot of things that need to be going right to be able to get from A to B safely. You've got the gas, you've got the brake, you've got the steering wheel, mirrors, you need to obey the laws of the road, you need to be looking for things that could come into your way. So there's a lot of things within executive functioning alone that really just help us on day-to-day tasks like driving. And if those aren't all functioning, you're not able to focus on every one of those things at all times. It can be hard to get through the day in an organized fashion and a confident fashion. So here's just an example of our schedule. So we start out the day with cardio exercise. We work on 2 different cognitive areas within the brain. We do our meditation, we take a break, and then we do 2 additional. And then the part-time program, we just work on 1 area twice and just twice a week.
And there's counseling once every 2 weeks,
yep.
One-on-one with the counselor.
And we do have a commitment to research. We want to find more physical brain changes and neuropsychological changes in an effort to improve quality of life. We've recently had a study with BC Cancer Agency approved, where we're going to be looking at cognitive issues related to cancer issues. We have been doing this with UBC, and we're also connected with Health Tech Connects out of Surrey, that are looking at our people once a month and doing EEG scans once a month on their own database. And this is something we really want our focus to be on, is research and continuing to prove our model, continuing to prove that brain injury recovery is possible on a cognitive level beyond the acute stage. Best responders within our program, engagement is key. We don't expect people to come in on day 1 and be able to do everything for the full time. We will slowly engage into it. But to improve, and the way neuroplasticity works is repetitiveness, is finding good behaviors and continuing to work towards those and building upon that to strengthen the connections. And what we really coach towards is a growth mindset. And I say it's an asset coming in because it is something that everyone, doesn't matter if you have a brain injury or not, growth mindset is something that can really help to improve. So I want to talk to that a little bit. So those are a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. A fixed belief, they are who they are, they're skills, abilities, and habits are essentially set, and you can't teach an old dog new tricks. This is kind of that I'm bad at math type of comment, where it takes time to learn some things, and not everything that we're not good at the start. Like if you look at Michael Jordan, for example, he's a good example of that, how you're not always great. He was cut from his high school basketball team to being the best ever. It's kind of that idea that you can improve on things. And that's what the growth mindset is, knowing that real change happens all the time. With the right focus and repetition, brains rewire and enhance or add pathways that result in new skills, knowledge, and habits. So what kind of mindset do you have, a growth or fix? So the type of language you can sometimes see with either one. So growth mindset, I can learn anything I want. When I'm focused, when I'm frustrated, I persevere. I want to challenge myself. When I fail, I learn. Tell me I try hard. If you succeed, I'm inspired. My effort and attitude determine everything. Whereas a fixed mindset might look at those things as I'm either good at it or I'm not. When I'm frustrated, I give up. I don't like to be challenged. When I fail, I'm no good. Tell me I'm smart. If you succeed, I feel threatened. My abilities determine everything. So there's a different way to look at everything. It's kind of that glass half full, half empty type approach. And if you're looking at that half full, it can really help within a recovery mindset. And to develop a growth mindset, recognizing where you are today and visualizing where you want to be, and that can help you create steps to improve. And making peace with discomfort. So understanding that yes, this might not be comfortable now. How can I make peace with this? How can I keep moving forward? And looking at it as a stepping point rather than a landing spot. Acknowledging any limitations or any limiting beliefs you have about yourself. Seeing where some of those fixed mindsets are, or seeing, and that comes back to that I'm not good at math. There could be a lot of things that you are good at, and a lot of things you've worked really hard at, or things you've enjoyed working hard at. And it's not always the things we're good at the start that are the most fun to work at, but knowing that, yes, I have some issues in this area, I need to keep working at it. I can't let myself get stagnant in this area. And becoming aware of limiting thoughts. So what is popping up? And that's where meditation or mindfulness can really help in being able to see, okay, that's just a thought. That's something coming to my head that isn't really helping me right now, and being aware that those thoughts are coming. And with a growth mindset in ABI rehab, the key is to look at everything as an opportunity to grow, to retain your brain to think positive thoughts and believe your potential, and to create a plan of action to reach your goals, and to put the efforts you deserve into your recovery. So give yourself time to be able to recover. Plan that out. Create goals that you're working towards, small, attainable, smart goals. And to retrain your brain to think positive thoughts and believe. So you need to believe that this is possible, that you can get these. And just achieving little things throughout the day, and Mary will talk to that a little bit. And to look at everything as an opportunity to grow is very important.
So I hope everyone is still with us. Now I'm going to continue my story. I'm sure you're all wondering what happened to me. So once I was back home with nobody really taking care of me, I still had one person, which was my occupational therapist. And she one day told me about the Watson Center. And she said, you know, you should check out the Watson Center because they can help you with your cognitive weaknesses. And she got me right away. My husband even said, she is your savior. You should follow her. She will take you where you want to go. So I did follow her. She pushed me to drive again as well. So she is the one who introduced me to the driving rehab people. And I was able to get my driver's license back because the little things make a big difference. If you can drive again, it makes a big difference. So this is me in action here with Josh actually during the program where we were working on the memory exercise. And I don't know about you guys, but my memory was definitely impacted by all the surgeries that I've had. So it was very difficult, but like Josh said, it was repetitive. So after a while, it just gets into your brain and you get it. It was a life changer for me. I followed the program for 13 months. I actually didn't want to stop because I felt very good there and safe, and I didn't want to stop. So I'm happy that they actually asked me to volunteer with them, because now I can help other people who have brain injuries. At the end of the program, I did feel relevant again, and I felt like I could contribute to my community by helping others. Was ready to take on challenges, and my self-esteem was finally back up. I started to like myself again. As you notice, I didn't say love myself again like I did before the injury, but at least I started to like myself again. After the program, so here I am here. I forgot to mention my little dog Tiger there, who's so cute, and she also came to visit me in the hospital. I should not have ignored her. But there's my family now, and I'm traveling again, not around the world like I used to, but at least, you know, in Canada and the US. I'm still a wife. My husband didn't leave, which is, I know is rare in those situations. And I'm a mom to my little 5-year-old, and we're reconnecting together. And I'm very happy to be volunteering at Watson Center and giving back to others who need it the most. So in continuing with what Josh said about the growth mindset, I'm going to tell you a little bit about some tricks that I have personally. And I know we're all different and all our injuries are different as well. But some things that you can do every day to help growing. So it starts when you get up in the morning. So every morning I make my bed, because it's the first task that you do of the day. And if you cannot mess up making your bed, you will do it right. So you start with a win, making your bed. I always choose colorful clothes as well, and that comes from my daughter, because when she was born, we decided she's only going to wear colors. So she's always dressed in rainbows and butterflies and all these colors. So and it started influencing her personality. She's really a little bright little sunshine. So now I do wear colors as much as I can, as often as I can, so that I feel better about it. Also, every morning I repeat to myself, I will never be as young as I am today. I will never be as healthy as I am today. And I will never be as beautiful as I am today. I know we all know that, but it's a good reminder. And if you say that to yourself every day, it helps you be in a good mood for the rest of the day. And of course, be grateful. As always, you've heard that by many, many people. We're alive and we're happy to be here still. Surround yourself with those who believe in you and who are thriving. So here's my husband on the left and my father on the right. So my father, he was diagnosed with cancer at the same time in 2014 that I was diagnosed. So he's been fighting the battle as well. And he's very optimistic and he's driven. He was CEO of a company, and my husband beside him is very similar to my dad in the sense that he's very determined and career driven and optimistic. So I remember when I was at the rehab center, my husband every day he would write on the board, "You can do this," because that's what I had to remind myself. I can do this. If not, you just get depressed and you don't want to do it anymore, and you get into the not the growth mindset, the fixed mindset. Talk about it, annoy everyone with it. So that's a counselor that we have here at the Watson Center. So I remember the first time I went into her office, I started crying right away. As soon as I put one foot in the door, I was crying already. And I told her, I said, am I ever going to be happy again? And of course, she didn't have the answer for me, but I'm still working towards it. So talk about it. Even if people are tired of hearing you talk about it, and if you feel tired yourself of talking about it, you still have to get it out. And my tip here is say yes to almost everything and ignore the rest. So when I was at the rehab center, I decided I would say yes to everything that was proposed to me. So if they asked me to be part of the karaoke, I would say yes. If they asked me to be part of the bingo, I would say yes. So I started doing everything, and saying yes kind of brings the positive as well to yourself. So there's always an opportunity that comes when you say yes. Like this webinar, I was nervous about it, but I said yes to it because I thought, you know, it might help people and it might give me better opportunities. So here I am today giving it to you guys. Also, some lexical changes that you can make, that can go a long way. So I used to say my brain injury. I don't say my brain injury, I say the brain injury, because it's not mine. I don't want it to be mine. I also switched from I have to I get to. So instead of I have to go pick up my daughter, I say I get to go pick up my daughter because I'm still here and I get to do it. And change from if I get better to when I get better. So instead of saying if, say when. It's more positive and it takes you where you want to go. I also used to say, well, I was away, you know, but I was sick. I used to say to my husband, well, when I was away, you know, I wasn't close to my daughter because I was away, but I wasn't away. I was sick in the hospital. It wasn't my choice. So just making those little changes lexically have actually made a difference for me. Another one is I can't afford it. Change it to how can I afford it? So I can't afford it right now, but how can I actually afford it? So from an affirmation to a question. A few words of wisdom. Share your goals to as many people as possible, because the more you tell people, the more you're accountable for it. Also, work out. That came from the Watson Center because you have to work out every day. And eat the cake, of course, because you want to have some pleasures in life. Wear colors every single day. I talked about that. Meditate. That's part of the program that I've learned through the Watson Center because I never used to meditate before, and now I do. Every night before bed, I do a small little quick meditation to help me fall asleep. Visualize your goals. So since I paralyzed, I can't run anymore. And that really bothers me because I want to run again. So now I started visualizing myself running. So I'm hoping that in the future, I'll be able to run again. Be kind to yourself and be grateful. I talked about being grateful, but I know it's redundant, but it's so important to be grateful for what you have. You're still here today and you get to do all the things that you're doing every day. But be patient. It takes time, years and years to recover. So it can't happen tomorrow. It takes time. Cultivate the badass in you. That's just a book that I read that's called, it's next on the next slide. I'll talk about it a little bit later. And the last one is start today, not tomorrow. It's easy to do. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll wear colors tomorrow. No, wear colors this morning when you get up. Do it. There's a badass. You are a badass. How to stop doubting your greatness and start living an awesome life. So that's a book that I read that I really, really enjoyed, and I recommend it to everybody. So it just talks about how to have a growth mindset, basically. The author is Jen Sincero. So if you get a chance, if you can get it for yourself and read it, it's a positive, very inspiring book. And on the right is Jay Shetty. He's someone that I follow on Facebook. He's got something like 2 billion followers, and he was born, he said he could become either a lawyer, a doctor, or a loser. And he became an inspirational speaker. And he did very well for himself. So if you want to follow him, his name is Jay Shetty. And if you want more of the reference, I can give it to you later on.
Yeah, so we do have current enrollment opportunities if you are interested in looking into the Watson Center, especially if you're on the West Coast. We do have people that have come as far away as Ohio in the US just to come into our program, because there's not much out there for cognitive improvement beyond the acute stage of brain injury. And we do have a hotel within our center as well. It's not a residential program, but some people do come here just for the program itself. But for those that are local and are interested, we've got our part-time program is Tuesday and Thursday. It's also Monday, Wednesday, and from 12:15 to 3:20. Our full-time morning program and our full-time afternoon program as well. So 2 different groups. And full-time we count as basically a half day.
Full-time is 4 hours.
So the steps to enroll: book a meeting to discuss fit, and we can discuss your program. Book a trial day, come in and try it out. It's 2-pronged for that. We want to be able to see and recommend what we're seeing. We want you to be able to make an informed decision by experiencing kind of what we do, so you kind of know what to expect. And then we kind of meet in the middle and discuss. We would discuss research opportunities, as we do a few ongoing, enrollment and book baseline testing and a start date. There's our contact information. And yeah, we'll leave it up for questions. I think we have about just around 10 minutes for questions. We'd be happy to answer anything you have. I'd like to also invite in Anita Laporta, who's here with us. She's also gone through our program and with a background of brain tumor and brain cancer as well. And she'd be happy to answer any questions with Mary-Eve about what it's like going through the program or tips that they might have just with dealing with the stresses of life.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Josh and Mary-Eve. For anyone who has any questions, on the right-hand side of your screen, there is a drop-down box that you can type your questions in. And if you would like to type them in there, then I can read them aloud for the best person to respond. In the meantime, if there's people that are asking or typing out questions, I wonder whether or not for those who aren't in BC, if you have any recommendations for things that they can do within their own homes, or I know that there were some things right there, but if you could kind of pick the most important thing, what would you encourage people to do within their own time or their own space?
Yeah, keep reading, stay educated for sure. I think that's one of the bigger things, and try to challenge yourself on type of reading that you might not be used to doing. So finding new information that can stimulate some of the executive functioning areas as well, just to be able to take in new information, organizing it, finding the main point. Also, stay engaged with friends. A lot of the time that can be difficult because you might feel like you're a different person, or you might not have the same type of connections, and that's fine. Finding new groups to stay in. Community is so important. Finding places to go with people that you can talk to is amazingly important, and that's something we didn't really predict within our program as being as important as it was, and people just seeing each other every day and being there for each other. And I think that really helps with dealing with emotions, understanding other people's emotions, being able to read social situations, which is really important for executive functioning. So definitely read new stuff, stay a part of a community, find new communities to be a part of. Any type of small brain training type of things that you find, like nothing is really going to hurt you within those areas. It might not be targeted to exactly what you need or what you need to be focusing on, but it can keep you a little bit sharper. And the longer you can stay kind of cognitive and thinking within the day, challenge yourself the next day and try to get more out of it. And play memory games, like try different things with friends. I don't know if the ladies have other suggestions for.
Well, for me, one thing that I decided to take on myself was my husband was turning 40, so I decided to organize a surprise birthday party for him. And I know it sounds really little, but it's actually a lot of work and organization to do it. And I don't think I would have been able to do it if I had not followed the program at Watson Center. Even other things like renewing your passport, like paperwork and things that are kind of annoying to do and take a long time. You have to be right and do it carefully. Things like that, do it. Don't give it to someone else to do it.
I am a teacher on disability because of my health situation. I have brain cancer along with its metastasized down my spine. But the point being is, being a teacher, I did get a minor in learning disabilities when I went through university. And here I was teaching elementary students all these basic strategies and skills to help them read and learn and organize. And I really realized that I had to go back myself to these very simple tools, and then that made me get online and dig deeper. And as long as you start somewhere, I think that's the beginning of anything, because that's actually how, because I was a teacher interested in learning disabilities, that's how I found Aerosmith. And from Aerosmith, the school that's here at UBC, from there, I then found Watson Brain Center. So I think if you think the search is overwhelming, I don't think necessarily it is. It's just learning not to give up with asking the questions or finding the resources, or just starting something that is going to develop your cognitive functions. This whole new idea about neuroplasticity, I find it very intriguing and very optimistic. And there's more and more out there on it. So I would just encourage you to just start somewhere.
Start and finish. I mean, start a research and do it till the end, until you feel it's completed. Because it's easy to start things and then you get overwhelmed and you got too much to do and you just don't do it. But it's better to start and get to your goal every time. These are simple things that you can do to keep working your brain so you keep functioning.
So we do have another question, which is, are you familiar with very small mini seizures post-surgery? Mine have gone on for 2 years.
That have been going on for 2 years?
That's what this says, yes.
I think the big thing that we've kind of noticed within this is that saying, if you've seen one brain injury, you've seen one brain injury. And I think everyone's very different and unique. So it really have to be looked at from like a person to person basis. Yes, we have seen that type of thing. And then we've had people with acquired brain injuries come into our program with those types of issues. However, it's not something that would really keep us from engaging. And it didn't display itself as an issue within our program. And I think even with some of the mindfulness, it can be a bit better to predict when things might be coming. But the issue with the seizures can be very different for everybody. So it'd have to be like, we'd have to look at it as like a one-on-one, one-to-one type situation. But it's not something that should be limiting within cognition or hope for improvement by any means.
Wonderful, thank you. And the other individual here is more so just a comment, I think, rather than a question, but just indicating that they have a glioblastoma and they've never been told by any oncologist or neurologist or doctor, etc., about these resources. So I'm glad that we were able to provide this presentation to you today, so that you are aware of them, and perhaps if you are in the BC area, that you would be able to reach out to the Watson Center to seek more information, or be able to take some of the recommendations that Josh and Marianne have talked to us about today, to be able to help you through that journey.
Yeah, it's no fault of anyone that we are fairly new, and we do come from education, and we're coming into kind of healthcare in a world it's quite established, and there's just not much research, and like we said, it's no fault of anyone in the professional world, but there's just hasn't been enough research put to this type of thing. And we hope that changes in the future, and we're happy to be put in touch with any professionals or anyone that wants to ask any questions. Feel free to reach out to us. We'll put our contact information back up. And we're happy to chat and answer any questions specific to anyone as well at any time.
Thank you. Yes, I think that Brain Tumor Foundation of Canada has been, this is our 36th year, and I think that we still hear people at the other end of the phone or at the end of an email or whichever that indicate that they never knew about us. So it's, it takes time, and and I'm glad when people do come across the resources that they can to help them through the journey. So so I just want to say thank you again for
yeah, of course, my pleasure.
This. It's some great information. I felt like I knew a lot of information before we had spoken before, but this was able to provide some more clarity as well. So this presentation will be online after for those who are online. I see that there are some that are marked unattentive, so that if there are people that had to step away, it will be made available hopefully within the next week or so, and we will make sure that that also gets out to the Watson Center so that you guys can provide it as well as a resource if you wish to do so. So thank you again, Josh and Marianne, for taking the time to present to us today, and I thank all of the participants who are able to join us today for this wonderful webinar.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.